Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. I know some places it is later on in the day, and in Texas, it's in the middle of the day, and in other places, it's very early in the morning. And I guess some places that it will be Saturday. I don't know, but it's Friday. So let's get into a Q&A. I asked you guys on X. I don't know if I'm ever going to be okay with that, calling it X. I don't know. I'm working on it. I asked you guys to put your questions out there, and I am going to endeavor to answer them. So here we go. Brandon Morse. How you doing, Brandon? Is there anything you like that they do in England that you wish they did here in America? There's one thing. There is one thing I'm gonna tell you that I'm not really bothered by, but I am a little bit bothered by. And I've got a prop. Oh, I've got two props to show you. See this? A knife and fork. Now, Americans don't really think about this much, and Brits don't think about it, but I had to think about this when I was playing an American, which I've done multiple times, but not always at the dinner table. This is how Brits eat their food, right? They cut the food, they stick the fork in it, and they eat it like that, right? Now, this is what Americans do. They cut the food. Sometimes they do it like this. I've seen it like this, right? I've seen it all different kind of ways, but they'll cut their food and then they will put the cutlery, which they call silverware here, which is kind of weird even when it's plastic, they call it silverware. And then they pick it up with the other hand and eat it. That's weird to me. So put it down, cut, flip over and eat. I don't know. Really inefficient, right? I like just getting the food from there to there. Odd. It's kind of like when I wrote script once, and I said that the character, whatever, was walking across the car park, and everyone was like, "What's a car park?" And I was like, "It's where you park your car." Oh, parking lot. I was like, "No, it's a car park because you park your car there. It's a lot where you park your car. It's a parking lot." And I'm like, "Oh, all right, okay." All right, it's not a hill I will die on. So it's the same thing when I talk about football and soccer, and we can get into that later. All right, so yeah, I think that's a little bit weird. Things they do over there, I do think that they can be a lot more polite over there. I do. I'm not saying I love America, and I love England for what it is, and I love America for what it is, right? So it's all good to me. I don't know what that is. I can't read. El Techno. Who is the coolest person you've ever worked out with? That's a really great question. A really great question. So I have worked out with Sly. Well, he was there when I was working out because he used to have his own personal trainer, and I went and worked out with him, and Sly came toward the end of it. So, and this is a guy, I can't remember his name now, but there's a very famous picture of Stallone where he's standing in front of all this orange equipment and he's wearing like the red trunks, or the red shorts, and he's flexing. Those machines are custom made for him. So I went to that gym and worked out there. So that was pretty cool. But I've also trained with Richie Woodall, who's a good friend of mine, who's WBC super middleweight champion of the world. That was pretty cool. I've trained with Silvio Simac, another good friend of mine, who was the world champion Taekwondo. He was ITF world champion. Amazing. Who else have I worked out with? Obviously, I worked out with Kevin Nash, Diesel. That was an experience. I also worked out with one of the world's strongest men, Derek Boyer, who's he said to me, "This is no joke. I'm doing a film in China, and we didn't have any weights or very limited weights to work out. And Derek is a Kiwi, I believe. I think he's from New Zealand, and he said, I'm going to go and work out. I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm doing legs today. I'm like, how are you going to do legs? I mean, this is one of the world's strongest men, right? And he goes, I'm going to squat the grip truck. And he went out, literally, I saw him, and he put his hands underneath the truck. And he was doing, I mean, there was like not that much movement, but he was lifting the grip truck. It was unbelievable. So I'm trying to think. Steve Howie I've worked out with as well. He's an awesome good friend of mine. Worked out with Luke Goss years ago. I think that's... Scott Dixon, who was he was a boxer as well, or he's still a boxer. He's a good friend of mine. He's over in Malta. I'll have him on the show, I think, at some point, because his life story is unbelievable. Like, he was stabbed 27 times and left for dead. It's unbelievable. So I trained with him as well. He was awesome. And a bunch of other people. Okay, Mr. Magic, are you missing seeing the Baggies live, Matthew? The Baggies on my soccer team, West Bromwich Albion. Yes, I do. I miss it. I miss going and having that atmosphere. My son, Connor Marsden, says, talk about the dark side of Hollywood. No. I will at some point. That's too broad a question. Christopher Williams, how did you end up getting a role in Coronation Street? So for those of you that don't know, in 1997, my first real big break, I mean, I did a show called Emmerdale before that, but my first real break was Coronation Street, which is a giant show. Back then, the episodes were getting 19 million people watching. So it was bigger than anything you can imagine right now. Really, it's just a giant show, and it changed my life. But how did I get it? I just got an audition. And I hadn't had many auditions at that point, because I'd auditioned for Emmerdale and got it. And then I went and I did this show called Island and I got it. I can't remember whether I auditioned that or whether that was an offer. I'm not sure. But then there was this role in Coronation Street and I was like, okay, I'll go up for it. And I got recalled like 7 times. And at that point, I was also auditioning for some films. And my manager at the time, my agent in the UK, just turned around to Coronation Street and said, listen, he's not auditioning again. This is from my recollection. You got to shit or get off the pot, right? It's either offer him the role or not. And that's what happened. I got the role. And then a few months later, I won that thing over there, which was the National Television Awards. I didn't expect it. It was all like a massive blur. Every day I'd go to work. And Coronation Street at that point, I think, was 6 weeks in advance, right? So you'd go every day and you'd work and you'd work and you'd work. And I'd walk up the street where Granada Studios was, and I'd walk through and everyone was going crazy about everybody else on set. And nobody give a damn about me. I'd just walk past. You know, people would drive up, get in their cars, they'd be mobbed. And I mean, it really was crazy. Anyone that was around that period of time will understand or be able to relay how big that show was. So every day, boom, 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 go up. And then it was my first episode was on my birthday, 3rd of March, 1997. And the next day I went out to go and get a sandwich like I always did, and I couldn't get out. And I was like, oh, that's different. So my life just changed. And I feel a lot of empathy for these kids that get famous very young, because I mean, then how old would I have been? 1997. So I'd have been 24, 25. And I just wasn't prepared for it. I wasn't prepared for everything that came with that. It was quite something. All right. Chief Prairie Wolf pronouns biscuit beer. Nice pronouns. If a chicken and a half laid an egg and half day and a half, how long would it take the grasshopper to kick the shins out from a buffalo? Pie. White Bear. What was one of the first things you liked about America as you became a citizen, or even just show visiting during jobs? Okay. The first thing I loved about America, I think, was the patriotism. I really loved that. I really loved that people back then, when I came in 2000, were very proud of their country. I liked that. I'd seen the how can I put it? In the UK, you were told if you flew a flag, then you were a racist, or you were this, you were that. And I didn't like that, because I think there's nothing wrong with being proud of where you're from and proud of what people have done before you. I mean, Great Britain stood up against the Nazis, right? They did a lot of good things, and you should be proud of that. If you show me a country, I'll show you a country that's made mistakes and done evil things. Right, but I can also show you countries that have done really wonderful things. So I loved the patriotism. I also liked the can-do attitude, because in the UK I had a lot of a lot of what they call tall poppy syndrome. There's a lot of that, like, oh, who do you think you are? You'll never do this. You'll never do that. And I found that really difficult just as a human being. I like to encourage people to succeed because it's tough, right? It's really tough to win at anything. And there's a lot of that in the UK, or there was. And it wasn't like that in the USA, which is one of the things that inspires you to succeed, right? Like, I actually can do it. And there are people that are congratulating me for doing that. And that has changed in recent years. And that is really sad. And it's unfortunate for the world. All right. Michelle Christopher, have you ever considered running for any type of political office? Honestly, I never really wanted to come out and talk about politics. Like I said, I'm an actor. I just have opinions like everybody else, not more, not less valid. Unfortunately, people tend to tell you that your opinion as an actor is more valid or isn't as valid as other people, when really it's just as valid as anyone else. So in the last election, back home, I think it was before I become a citizen here, back home in the UK, West Bromwich has just been depressed and depressed and depressed for years and years and years. And I've seen it get worse and worse. And it had a Labour, which was the equivalent of the Democratic Party. It had a Labour government for years. And I thought, you know what? I'd really like to do something for the people back there. And I considered, like, would it make sense going back and trying to run and to make a difference for the people that I grew up with, because a lot of them are feeling really disaffected. And so that was a little inkling. And then over here, I see all the corruption and the dysfunction and the lies. And I just thought, maybe one day I can make an impact, because it's like one of those things. Have you ever done that question where they say, you're flying on a plane and it comes over the tannoy, the pilot's dead. Can anyone fly the plane? What would you do? And some people go, I'd go up there and I'd fly the plane even though I don't know. Or other people go like, I'll be panicking, I'll be this. And I was always the guy that I was like, well, I'd look around and see if anyone else could do it. And if they can't, then I'd do it. And I've been like that my whole life, right? It's not abdicating responsibility, but it's understanding that other people are more qualified than I am to do that job. But if there comes a point where they're not qualified to do it, then I'll do it. Right? I think that's the responsible attitude certainly of every male. You should be like that, right? Because especially if you've got kids, because you don't want to put your kids' future in the hands of imbeciles or corrupt people. So it's tempting. I mean, I know it would probably destroy my life. But again, talking out like this has gone a long way to destroying my career. But every now and then you get an opportunity to stand up for something. And that was mine, certainly with the thing that I can't talk about on YouTube. All right. Little Madam, what is your opinion on how the UK is now? I went back last year and I'd forgotten how beautiful it was. I hadn't been back for a long time. And I was doing a movie. I was doing a movie in Norwich, and I'd never wanted to go to Norwich. I'd never had the inkling to go to Norwich. I guess when I was younger, it was like London, or that was it. Manchester, the big cities, but never really thought of Norwich. And I went there and I was like, this place is absolutely beautiful. The churches there are amazing. The architecture is incredible. I love it. And England in the summertime, there's nowhere better in the world. It's spectacular. Went out into the country, just beautiful, beautiful. I'd forgotten how green it was. And it's one of those things when you realize how old you are, because I was driving down the motorway, and I realized that the trees had grown a lot. I know that might sound stupid, right? But I hadn't been there for a long time. And when you go down those freeways or motorways every day, you don't see the trees growing. And it was very, very green. But then I went into the center of Birmingham and it was unrecognizable. There were too many people there for a start. It was just flooded. And I feel like England and the UK has brought in too many immigrants. They just have. There's nothing wrong with immigration if you say, listen, you have to come here and abide by our rules. But that's not been the case. And that's why the multicultural aspect of England has completely changed. It doesn't work. It just does not work. I'm not saying that you can't have people from different cultures or whatever, but they have to adhere to the culture in that country. Otherwise, you have chaos. And I feel that there's this real undercurrent in the UK, this like uneasy undercurrent in the cities. It's really sinister. And look, I don't mind different cultures. I don't. I love them, actually. I love experiencing different cultures. But you can't have multiple different cultures in one place. It's going to result in disaster. So I think the UK is finished. I hate to say, they're losing everything that made it great. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Do you feel it is? Do you feel like the country's been hijacked and those great things about England, those wonderful things that everyone loved about England, are being denigrated and told that they're no good anymore, and that there's another alternative? Even though people are flooding to get in, they're saying that it's a really bad place and everywhere else is better, but they still want to come to the UK. And look, I'm an immigrant to the United States. I came here. That's why I say I'm an American. My kids are American. That's it. That's why I don't call soccer football, because football in America is in English American football. So I think that's really important. I know a lot of people have been like, oh, he's xenophobic. It's not about that, right? It's about bringing people together and being coherent. And that's what's really important. It's actually about uniting people under a common ideology, right? And that is being British or being American. It doesn't mean you lose those other elements of you, but there's something else there that unites you, because all they're trying to do is divide us, certainly over color, which is just utter bullshit. I won't accept that. Your immutable characteristics are the least most interesting thing about you. The least. It's horrible. Linda Coleman, do you buy the household groceries? And if you do you make a grocery list? My wife makes the grocery list. She has to, because when I'm in Costco, I come back with it's like this giant mound of stuff that we don't need. And she's like, why did you buy that? And I'm like, I don't know, suckered. But yeah, I do buy the groceries sometimes. I'll certainly go and do a top up, because, we have a bunch of kids and it's like a bunch of locusts come through the house like that, and they just eat everything. So I often have to go up and do a top up. So my wife makes lists. Don't you find that women like making lists, right? Tell me if that's your experience. I don't like making lists. Jay, have you ever collaborated with Glenn Beck? I believe that partnership would be very beneficial for both of you. His media vision seems to be like yours, and he's located in Texas. Yes, I know Glenn. I've met him a few times. I've spent some time at the Blaze. I love those guys over there. And yeah, his vision is almost identical to mine, and we've had discussions about that. Matt the Nut, when are Venky's going to sell Blackburn Rovers? I don't know. How do I know? I don't know. I've got bigger problems, right, with what's going on at West Bromwich Albion. There's a lot of trouble there. All right, Julie Foster, what effects did moving over the water have on the range of career opportunities you were offered? That's a difficult question. Are you talking about the range of career opportunities I was offered in the UK? Because it's a weird thing, right? So when you do something like Coronation Street, like I did, people kind of go, well, soap actor. It's like, soap actor. It doesn't matter that Ian McKellen's done it, and Ben Kingsley's done it, and Joan Wally Kilmer's done it, and all these other people that are really, really good. Joan Froggatt was on it when I was on. They're really great actors. But you kind of get pigeonholed. And that was one of the things that I didn't want to do. But when I came out, I had the reaction, like I told you before, this tall poppy syndrome thing, where people were like, who does he think he is? Does he think he's bigger than the show? I'm like, no, I'm just an actor. I'm an actor that I played that role. I felt like it went as long as it could. And any other time that I would have spent in it would have pigeonholed me, and I wouldn't have been able to do another role without people thinking that's Chris from Coronation Street, which I still get like 20, 25 years later, however long it is. I still get that. So when I moved out of that, there's kind of a snobbery in the industry there, where they're like, soap actor, he's not gonna amount to anything else. And I'm like, no, I'm just an actor. And again, this is why I say to people online, like, you're not going to break me online by attacking me. I've had that my whole life. People telling me that I can't do something. I don't care. I'm never going to ask someone else for permission to succeed, and none of you should either. So I did that. I went and I got a movie with Michael Caine. And then I was like, you know what? I'd like to go to America, but I don't want to go to America with cap in hand. You know, I want to have something. So it just so happened that the film I did with Michael got me a lot of attention. I was also auditioning for Star Wars at that point. So I had a bunch of managers actually fly over from America, from Los Angeles to London, to ask me to, if they could represent me. And one of them, I said, okay, I'll see you on Friday. I think it was like the Monday or the Tuesday or something. I said, I'll see you on Friday. And she goes, oh yeah, British actors always say that, and they never come over. And I was on the plane on Friday and I went over, and that was it. And that was the beginning of things. So again, I proved the doubters wrong in the UK. So there seemed to be a reluctance then, because a reluctance for them to call me in and hire me on things. You wouldn't think that, right? You'd think that the bigger you get, certainly if you make it in America, that would be a good thing for the UK. But I've been offered movies in the UK, but I've never, ever been offered a TV show in the UK. Not once. Never been asked to go back to Coronation Street, which I think you'd think I'm one of the only people that left Coronation Street and did something afterwards. You'd think that maybe that would be a good thing. I'd love to go back just because I feel, in a sense, that I'd like to put the cap on the character. A lot of people ask me about the character all the time, even though the show now is a fraction of what it was. But as many people tell me, I don't think the writing would be suited to me now, because it's gone all woke, apparently. I don't know. That's what they tell me. I haven't seen it. And certainly, unfortunately, in America, if you do not toe the line on people's political agendas, then you don't get called in for stuff. They just block you. And that might not even be the producers. It can be the casting directors. They just don't call you in. And that's the difficulty. Like, you can't show that there's discrimination there because they just don't call you, or you just don't get the calls back. Right? You'll go in, you'll do well, and they'll say, oh, that's great, they loved you. And then silence. So it's very difficult. So, I mean, I also think that a lot of people are like, well, he's not going to come back to England because he's making Hollywood movies and we can't afford him. But that should never stop anyone from offering me a role or asking me to come back. I mean, they do it to other people, so I don't know. Shayna, which is the best place to live, America or Britain? I ask as an American living in Britain. That's great. Also, how hard is it watching the invasion of the border when your son is trying to get in legally? I went through this myself, and it still angers me on a level that most things can't. Yeah. For me, America is the best place to live. When I moved here, it felt like home. That hasn't changed moving from California to Texas. It just feels like home. It feels like this is my country. When I went back, I was very nostalgic. I think I was nostalgic for the Great Britain that I grew up in. And again, I grew up on a council estate, single parent mom, not a lot of money at all. So it's not like everything was shits and giggles for me growing up. I mean, I had a great family and I love them. And we had a great time. I was surrounded with love and happiness, and all my friends were awesome. But, there were struggles, but it was a much better time then. I feel sorry for the kids growing up now. I mean, everything from food, maybe the food's maybe a little bit better, I don't know. But the music, the television, it's all worse than what we had when we were growing up. And the experience is worse. Although when I went back, I spent time with my sister, and I just had the greatest time. And we went to like the local pub, and it was just beautiful. She arranged for all my friends, my old friends, to come around and surprise me, and I loved it. My friends are my friends. I love them, and I'll always love them. And it's nice going back and talking to people who knew you when you were a snotty-nosed kid before you went off and did all these things, and people say different things about you, so they know who you are. And what was amazing was they haven't changed, and they said to me, "You haven't changed at all." And I hope that's a good thing. But I love America. And does it infuriate me about the border? Of course. I mean, it's number one, I don't understand how your first action in another country is an illegal one. I don't understand that. Just morally, why would you do that? Why would you come and commit a crime? The first thing you do is commit a crime. And I did it the right way. It cost me a lot of money, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And my son is sitting there patiently now, waiting to come in, where people are just flooding over the border. But you know what? We're going to do it the right way, because I don't want him to become an American by doing what they're doing. It's immoral. So, California Rover, do you think John Eustace will succeed at black belt? I don't know. Billy, do you believe the incidence of professional soccer players or athletes in general collapsing and in some cases dying is from the jab? All right. I've got to be careful about talking about this on YouTube. Look at what I say on X, and you'll see. All right. Carlo Belton, thoughts on the Tucker Carlson interview and the comments on how mainstream media are now stating they did request interviews with Putin, but they were denied. Does anyone believe what the mainstream media says anymore? I mean, it might be true, it might not be true. It doesn't matter. The way that they've attacked Tucker Carlson, who is an amazing individual, and he did his job, right? He did his job. And one thing that came out of it for me was that we're dealing with a serious person over there. He's really serious. He's very smart. You might say he's evil. You might say these are all other things about him. But he's very intelligent. And he made a coherent argument. And I think that the time is gone, unfortunately, where we're going to look at ourselves and say, that thing where, is it the GIF where it's like, are we the baddies? We're the two German guys. What Boris Johnson was doing, going over and persuading Ukraine not to have a peace treaty with Russia, thousands and thousands and thousands of people have died after that. What is going on? Where are the anti-war people? Right? Where are they? Why is everyone baying to go to war? And what are we getting involved in it for? It's none of my business. It drives me bonkers that it's kind of like me not having any money, right? I've got no money, and my kids are hungry, and the house is falling down, and I'm giving my neighbor $50,000 to have a pool put in. It's madness, right? It's just whichever way you look at it, it's immoral. We should be looking after ourselves first. So I think that I watched the whole thing. I think Tucker did a fantastic job. Anyone saying he did softballs is not true. He asked him some really great questions. And, it's up to anyone else to go and interpret it. But he's a serious dude, and I wouldn't put our guy opposite him. I mean, he's clearly outmatched, right? Do you think Biden could sit there and give a historical account of the United States and then what happened before that? He couldn't do what he had for dinner last week. Levels, right? Like, let's be honest about this. And all these people out there, they don't get this. They do not get this. This is serious. And because we are in the America and we're far away from all this, Europe's not far away from it. It's right on the doorstep. This is real. I know you see on film, right? The explosions, the devastation, you see the numbers. It's not real for you, not really, until it comes here. And it will come here eventually, trust me. So I don't understand how people don't try and make every attempt for peace. And I think we should, right now, I think after what happened the past 5 years, we need to question everything, right? That's my opinion. We need to question everything. All right, moving on. How high, RMVB, how high is your monthly grocery bill? Seriously, I want to know because this is getting insane here for big families. We're in North Carolina. It's crazy. It's insane. I mean, it's a lot of money for us anyway. I'd probably go into the thousands. We have a big family. We don't. It's not like we're having lobster tail every night. You know, we feed the kids well. Good stuff. My wife cooks every meal. It's just becoming untenable. And so all this BS about, look at the economy, it's really great. Yeah, well, you go and try and buy like a bag of rice and see how much more expensive it is now, or a pack of Doritos that have gone up $1, I think. Something like that. It's really it's terrible. And part of this is, I think, in a way, I'm not saying this particular incident with inflation, but it's intentional because it throttles big families and it makes people think, I can't afford to have a big family, or a family at all, which is horrible. And we need that. Yeah, all the time we're giving money out. Like, what was it, like $1,000 to people coming up? I don't know. It's just ridiculous. Ken in Japan, how far to the left does Hollywood actually tilt? I've heard from many that it's very left, but heard from others that there are more conservatives in Hollywood than many people realize. All right. How far to the left does Hollywood actually tilt? Very far. It used to be just like some people in there, but now you're seeing the content coming out to very far left. And there are a lot of conservatives in Hollywood, but they don't talk up because they get cancelled and they don't get an opportunity to make any money. So what I'm trying to do, and this is why I keep going on to you guys about subscribe, it's showing other people that you guys are involved and this is what you want, right? You can't look at like the Sound of Freedom and go, Sound of Freedom, yeah, it's an anomaly. Go and tell me what the other one was in the last 10 years. Do you know why I know that? Because when you go and pitch investors, and I talk to people, they ask me for my advice on pitching investors, I went, do not use the anomalies when you pitch them. Do not say that. Well, look, Sound of Freedom made $140 million. Anomaly. One person wins the lottery, right, every week. You wouldn't say that it was that's the norm. So we need a steady we need steady numbers to point to. Here is the market. Here's the market. This is what we need. And if need be, you guys become the studio, because I could come out and say, like I said before, hey, listen, you guys want to make a movie? Let's do something. But I can only do that when I'm getting up to in the hundreds of thousands of people, right? Because if I had, like I said, if I had 100,000 people follow me and each person gave me $10 to make a movie, we can make a movie, right? We can make a decent movie for that amount. Is it going to be massive? No. But if each person gave me $100 to go and make a movie, I could go and do that. And then you start changing the culture. My view is it's never going to be done by these other big entities. It's got to be grassroots. It's got to be you guys. And that's what I'm trying to say to you, because we have to build this for the kids that are coming up. All right. Yep, your former home country is a shambles. Glad you're here. But what would you do to fix where you moved from? All right. I kind of addressed that. I would go back and I'd deport a lot of people. I would then do an initiative where you are in the schools would get more historical education on the great things that Great Britain did, and do an initiative to make people proud of their country. I'd also say that I wouldn't have anything in any other language but English. I'd do a big push to make people speak English and only English. That includes, like, I wouldn't have any pamphlets or directions or anything in any other language. That'd be a good start, wouldn't it? So everyone speaks the same language. So you don't have people over in the corner like talking, doing their own thing. I mean, they could still do that, but they'd be able to converse in English. But this, I had it in here, drove me bonkers for years. Why they have, if you call up someone like a doctor's office, it'll say, press 1 for English, press 2 Spanish. Why? 1 English. That's it. So that's the first thing I would do. And then I'd start deporting all these people. And I would also have a crackdown on crime, because I think the police have just lost the plot. And it's not the rank and file. Like I said before, like my two uncles were cops and my cousin's a cop. And they're the greatest men. I really look up to them. They're really amazing men. All three of them are great. But their hands are tied. You got a bunch of bureaucrats, again, that are so terrified of being called racist for actually enforcing the law. The law should be blind. I'm sorry if certain demographics of people are committing crime, but that's what they're doing. And what you're doing by not enforcing the law in those instances is you're getting everybody else pissed off. So nobody wins. Most people just want fairness, right? So is that enough? All right, Jabby Dodger. Can you explain to a flat earther why they are wrong and back it with evidence? Or do you also just accept that the world is a globe because that's what you were told in school and that's what the majority agree with? I'm not even going to go into the flat earth thing. To me, it's absurd. Sorry. Rascal, which birds did you shag off Coronation Street? Really? Henry, did you guys do Amy training? I think it was any training before filming Rambo. Yeah, we did. I'd already done extensive training before I did that film, so I was already pretty much dialed in. In fact, we went over and we started training with the Thai Special Forces, and I went through and I had all my kit. I mean, I had the Barrett, but I really wanted to have another weapon with me, like an M4. Ideally, have the Barrett on the back and an M4. And so when we were doing the basic training, I started moving around and this, and the Thai Special Forces came over and they pulled me aside and they went, "Who trained you?" They knew immediately. And I said, Army Rangers. And they were like, okay, but you can sit out. And I was like, what? And they went, "You're a sniper. You're up on the hill. You don't need to do this." I was like, oh, darn it. So we did that. We did a bit of training like that. But I was already dialed in because I'd done such a lot doing Black Hawk Down and a bunch of other projects after then. And I'd continue training in real life, going away with these guys and doing firearms courses, like, I did Taron Butler's course. I did all that kind of stuff. Actually, Taron's was later, but I did a bunch of firearms training with former Delta guys and a lot of fun. Andrew John, are you aware that Zionism is a heresy? I don't know what that's got to do with anything or what it's got to do with me, quite honestly. All right, let me go back. There's a few more. All right, Lee Seymour, what do you think of this idea to bring in a blue card Simbin thing into football? VAR is bad enough, Matt. I'd probably give up on the game if this was introduced full time. Just leave it alone, guys. Like just stop messing with the game, right? It's got worse for me for VAR. Sorry for all the Americans that are like, what is he talking about, speaking a different language? But I won't go into it. But yeah, I agree. They just take advantage of us because we love our teams and we keep showing up. It's like an abusive relationship. Nuclear Taco, are you still fasting? I am not still fasting. I did a 72-hour fast, felt great. Then I knew I've got a bunch of stuff to do. I felt like after 72 hours, it was the law of diminishing returns, right? I was going to be going into, I get more, I think it's more growth hormone and stuff like that comes after 72 hours, but I kind of hit it. I was in keto, so I was like, Parker, would you ever leave Texas? If so, to which state? I never say never, right? I never say never. But Florida is beautiful. I love Florida. I love Hawaii. If it wasn't so crazy, politically. But Hawaii is one of the most, it's paradise, right? And Montana's gorgeous. And America's so diverse. I love Maine. Again, it's a bit crazy up there. But never say never. But I love Texas. I see this being the place where I'm going to die. Hopefully in some years' time, may I add. All right, David, is the thumbnail image chosen on this ad coincidental, or is something bigger at play? There's a picture of a guy with a weapon, and it says Age of Origins. Commander, are you ready to survive the apocalypse with your wit and strength? They've been apocalyptic video games forever. I don't think there's anything to it. to be honest. Dave Savage, fictitious. How can I pitch a movie to you? Write the movie, get the funding, and then we can go, right? Because here's the thing. I want to raise up a bunch of people making content. That's the whole idea. That's why I keep telling you guys, subscribe, like and subscribe, because what I want to do is get to a point where I can elevate you guys into the industry so I can get really good storytellers in and people that don't have any access in, right? Because you're not going to get any access. But saying that, I've spent the last 15 years getting screenplays. I have the most incredible scripts that you guys would all love. And the only thing I lack is financing to make them, right? Because I'll go in, I'll take this script somewhere, and they're like, "Well, can you put a pastor in it because we need to see him teaching this person?" No, I'm not going to put a pastor in it, right? Because that's not the story. And having a good dad is good enough, right? Or, oh, can we take this out? No, I'm sorry, we can't. We can't take that element out. I'm aligned with you, but this is art. It doesn't mean gratuitous nudity or sex or anything like that. But the idea that people have in their heads of what you guys want to watch is bizarre. And then when something like Top Gun comes out and it makes $1 kajillion, everyone's like, why did that make a lot of money? I'm like, because it's got everything. It's a great movie. It's got a great star. You're not preaching to anyone. It's got a great storyline. It's executed really well. Boom. That's it. That's all people want. They just want to be entertained. They don't want to be lectured to. When I go to the movie theater, I want to switch my brain off. I do switch my brain on sometimes before you say it, right? But I want to switch my brain off and just go and enjoy it. I don't want to be lectured to. I don't have something that comes along that pulls you out of that moment where you're like, oh, where did that come from? Where did that come from? Just, all right, so Dave, everyone's snobbish about this. Go and get Save the Cat, right? It's a great bit of software in a book. See how your idea fits into that and write it. And by the way, aspiring screenwriters know this. Your first draft will be crap. Don't think you're James Cameron. Your first draft is going to be bad. Put it away, come back to it, give it 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever, come back and read it again, and then do the changes. All right? But don't think that you're going to write a screenplay and that's it. It doesn't work like that. By the way, Ken Nolan, who wrote Black Hawk Down, told me that. He told me, make sure you write past 50 pages and your first draft will be crap. All right, Richard Collins, what's the food like on set? Does it vary? Yes, it does vary. Mostly it's good because cast and crew will put up with a lot if they get fed properly. And there's been ranges. I did a film, when I did Anacondas, we were in Fiji, and so it was like fresh fish every day. I actually got jacked on that, believe it or not, like not working out, just super clean. We'd have fish every single day with really great rice and fantastic, I guess, organic fruits, everything. Amazing. And so that was great. And then when I went to China, I did a movie called DOA over in China. We all lost 30 pounds because the food was so bad. But it wasn't the production's fault. I mean, it was a big production. It was just you couldn't get good food. So they did the best with what they had there. Things have changed now. On the other hand, I did a movie in France, and it was fine dining. It was crazy, which I don't agree with either. Like, you don't want to be sitting there having escargot at the middle of the day because you got to go off and do some work, right? Like, I don't want to totally get out of the mindset of working. So, and by the way, you could have wine. And one of the other things with that is they would just stop, right? For their breaks, they would just stop and they'd come around with like all these lovely, chocolates and cookies, and it was pretty amazing. Vin, favorite actor, actress to work with? I have a lot, actually, for different reasons. Like, some people you can spar well with, right? You got a vibe with. I did a movie called Bounty Killer, and I worked with an actress, a really good actress called Christian Petrie on that, and she was good. We had a good rapport. Like, we worked very well together. There was a good back and forth between us. Also, Joy Lenz, I worked with her on a pilot I did years ago. She was fantastic. We had a good rapport on that as well. there was a lot of banter, like we got on very well. Neither of those ladies are pretentious or bitchy or anything like that. They're just really, really nice to work with. So that's like the female aspect of it. The reason why I say that is there are some actresses you work. Oh, by the way, the other one who's really lovely is Heather Graham. I work with Heather Graham, and she's a sweetheart. Like, I went into the trailer. You go into a makeup trailer, and she was playing ELO and dancing around the trailer, and I'm like, this is super cool. She's a very big star, and she was super down to earth. I loved working with her. Again, very. Because some people can be really frosty, right, and not want to engage with you or work with you. Cody DePablo, amazing, such a sweet person, terrific actress. For those of you who don't know, I did this one particular episode of NCIS, which is a lot of people's favorite episode, and I loved that. I loved working with them. I loved working with Mark Harmon. He's an absolute gentleman. He ran that set. Like, he came over to me and he was like, "Hey, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show." And I'm like, this is Mark Harmon. He doesn't have to do this. He can be off in his, in his trailer. So he was lovely to work with. Graham McTavish. I love Graham. He's a fine actor and a wonderful, wonderful person to be around. Michael Caine. Again, like one of the greats, and he was wonderful. Stallone, hardworking, conscientious, smart. So many. I've been really blessed. I've been really, really blessed. I've been fortunate in my career. And the guys on Coronation Street, Sally Whitaker, just amazing, sweetheart. And the amount of work you have to put in on those shows it's really intense. So people don't realize, like, doing a soap is like doing repertory theater. It's like you get sharp, you get to hit your lines, you get to pa, 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 pa. And those actors on there, for the most part, they don't get the credit that they should. And Charlie Lawson, of course, amazing. I don't think we ever had any scenes together, but I worked with him. We were around each other a lot, and he's a terrific human being. All right. That age well, do you get residuals from movies, and if so, which distribution methods provide the most, or what movies should we watch that will give you the best financial boost to keep doing what you're doing? Yeah, I do get residuals. Most people get residuals. That's what keeps actors going for the most part in the dark times. Like for example, when the strike was on, you'd still get residuals through the strike. Now it's less impactful for the bigger actors because it's relative to the amount you get paid, right? So they could be getting residuals of $1 million. I mean, it's crazy, right? More, $5 million, a lot of money. And so that's why those guys have a lot of power. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of power because they're very wealthy. What should you do? Please share my channel with people. The more I can grow this, as I said before, the more I can grow the channel, the more interaction I have with you guys, the more chance I get to be the one that calls the shots when we move forward and we do production to a level that you guys deserve. Go and watch I Am That Man on YouTube. It's got like 4.8 or 4.9 million views right now just on YouTube. That's a massive movie. If I was in Hollywood, but if people were paying attention in the right way to what I'm doing, then I would get my pick of movies to direct. But go figure. All right, Lisa H, what's the strangest thing you've seen on set? I couldn't tell you. I can tell you I've seen a couple of disgusting things off set. I've seen some weird things on set. I've had some amazing experiences. That'd take too long. Joseph Zeph, what's your favorite book of the Bible and why? I don't have a favorite. Ben the Good Neighbor, you posted recently Gary Oldman, and I forgot who the other. Sorry, and I forgot the other were the two great and living actors. Agreed, but what about John Voight and Al Pacino? They have both played very diverse roles, including accents, etc. They don't just play themselves in movies. Any thoughts? Thanks. Right. If you go and watch a football game or a soccer game or a baseball game, you'll look and you'll go, these guys are amazing, right? These guys are just amazing. And then there's A-Rod. And then there's Pele. And then there's Messi. And there's, I don't know how many hundreds of people across the world are in professional sports at that level, but you can only name like 2 or 3. And it's not just marketing. It's because they do stuff that nobody else can do. And that was my point. I'm not saying these guys aren't amazing. I know John. He's amazing. He's an amazing actor. Pacino's an amazing actor. De Niro's an amazing actor. They've all done exceptional things in their career. But Daniel Day-Lewis is somebody that is just above and beyond anybody else, in my opinion. And Gary is right there. Gary's right there. Gary does stuff that you think, I don't know how he's getting away with that. Like, he's so big in some of his roles and it just fits. Right? I mean, look at True Romance. You're like, how did you get away with doing that? That's just unbelievable. And having the balls to go and do it. And Tarantino, I think, did Tarantino direct that? Oh, no, it's Tony Scott directed that. So Tarantino wrote it, but Tony Scott directed it. I mean, the fact that they did that and they put him in that role is unbelievable. He's incredible. I said like Denzel, amazing, amazing actor. But those two are just on another level. Sir Darrell says, of all the places travels, name your favorite and least favorite. Right, my favorite probably was Cape Town. Love Cape Town. Cape Town was so beautiful. The best food I've ever had there, I think. It just tasted so fresh. I remember sitting at the hotel and, it's nice because you go to the big fancy hotels. I remember sitting there and I ordered a papaya juice and it was like drinking something from another planet. It was amazing. Ralph says, would you consider doing a prequel to Rambo about the life of Schoolboy? Unfortunately, they don't have AI enough to de-age me 15 years or whatever. I wouldn't mind doing a spin-off. That was always meant to be the idea of the next Rambo movie after the one that Rambo 4 that I did. It was meant to be my franchise after that, but Sly chose differently and he chose the right thing. Right? That to me was the perfect end of a Rambo movie with him walking home. Loved it. But yeah, I think there should be a spin-off. I don't know why anyone hasn't done it yet. All right, Joseph Puetz. When will then be now? All right, United fans, who's the most famous celebrity film star in your phone contacts? I got quite a few, but I don't see them like that. They're just friends or people I know. And that's the problem, when you start talking about somebody. I had this once like years ago, and if the person's watching, he'll know who it is. He came up to me and he was like, so someone would come up to me and they go, what are you doing? And I'd be like, oh, I've got to go and meet like X person, right? And he'd be a famous person. And this guy told me after about four weeks of knowing me or longer, he said, I thought you were an arrogant asshole initially. I thought you were just like name dropping. Then I realized that you just told me the truth, like what you were doing in the day. And I'm like, yeah. Because I'm not going to, why would I lie? That's worse, right? To say, oh, no, nothing. And then, you're out with somebody. I'll just say it because I don't care about celebrities. They're just people. Slaz, do they actually have baby eating parties in Hollywood? Have you seen any of the satanic rituals in Hollywood? Yeah, every Friday night, like there's a happy, no, I don't know. I've never seen that. I don't know of it. I never heard of it. Do I think that there's some weird things going on there? Probably, yeah. Do I think there's some dark things there? Yeah, I do. But no, I mean, if I thought that, if I'd seen it, I'd have been out real fast. And I think that as things have got worse, that's I decided I couldn't be around that. It's just too toxic. John Wilkes Kuth, out of all the guns and props you've handled on your movies, which one is your favorite and why? It's got to be the Barrett, right? And that gun was actually, that rifle was made for me. It was the first shorter barrel that they did. So, the Barrett is synonymous with Schoolboy and synonymous with Rambo. So that's probably my favorite. And I got to shoot it with my buddy Terry Shapper on Hollywood Weapons to see if I could recreate the shot from Rambo, or one of the shots, the headshot from Rambo. And you guys should watch that. Like and subscribe. Get your friends to like and subscribe. And thank you again for all your questions. If you like this, I'll do it again. Please tell me if you want to do a live stream. I did ask about that. The more people that come on, the more I can move the needle. All right. The more people that subscribe, the more people have a say in entertainment. You guys are the boss. So remember, not all actors are like this. I promise.